had a couple of questions, knitting related questions again, and so one was about tension.
Yeah.
Tension squares, and one was about reading a ball band. So what I've done is I've just knitted up 3 tension squares and just wanted to show you, the importance of actually knitting a tension square. If it's a garment that's going to need to fit you properly, obviously if you're making a scarf or a baby blanket, it's not quite so important that you get exactly the tension. And if you're a learner, I always say don't worry too much, just get practicing your knitting at first and then concentrate when you need to on doing a tension square and looking at your tension. I'm a really tight knitter, so this was double knitting. They're all knitted on the same number of stitches for the same number of rows, and this is the size that the square should have been for the actual tension square on the garment that I was making. However,
I was just going to say, this is where you can see the little square, the little grid. That's the tension that you're ideally working to. So for this particular yarn, but this is where you get to it.
Yeah, we find it. Yeah, absolutely. Find it. So just to show you, that was my first one using the 4mm needles that it said I should use. And you can see how small it is in comparison to the size it should be. So I went up a needle size just to show you, and this is the next square with 1 needle size up, and then I ended up having to go another needle, so I ended up with 5mm needles to achieve the actual tension square size that I required. Everybody knits to different tensions, so just to tell you that it's really important. And then what you should do, obviously, if your tension square is coming out smaller or bigger. Donna, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So going back to here, it gives you the rows, the number of rows and the number of stitches to achieve a 10cm square. So that's what you're aiming for. So on this particular, the Stylecraft Bambino, it's saying that you need 30 rows and 22 stitches to achieve a 10cm square. So if you're not if it's smaller than that, you need to go up a needle size. If it's bigger than that, so you're more rows and more stitches to your 10cm, you need to go down a needle size. But it's always interesting to know whether you knit to tension, whether you're a tight knitter or a loose knitter. Generally, when you first start knitting, you're either really tight because you're a bit tense, or you're really loose, so because you've not got the tensioning of the yarn right. But as you get knitting and more confident, it is worth doing a tension square just to see how far out you are with your knitting. Like I said, it doesn't matter so much with a scarf or even a baggy jumper, but if it's something fitted or something that's got a bit of shape, then you do need to find out what your tension is on your knitting. The other information, I get a lot of queries on the phone regarding if we've not got the wool, that particular wool for a pattern, what wool can you use? Well, for instance, a double knitting pattern, if you've got a double knitting pattern and we haven't got the wool for that particular pattern, you can still knit it in any double knitting wool, but you might need either more balls of wool or less balls of wool. So don't always just think, oh, a double knitting pattern, that says 8, I need 8, if you're not using that yarn, because I've just picked up these 4 balls of yarn from downstairs, and all ball bands, again, it is worth having a look at the ball bands. I've got the meterage on them. It tells you how many metres and yards are on that ball of wool. And not all balls of wool have got the same meterage on. They're all 100 grams, but for instance, that one's 268, that one is 275. But all these balls of wool are a different meterage. They all weigh 100 grams, but there's different lengths of yarn on them. So we have got a PDF that we're going to put up with how to work out how many balls of wool you need to knit any pattern even any pattern with any yarn. And it's worth having a look at that, because sometimes, you know, you might only need 7 balls where the pattern says 8, or you might need 8 where it says 7. And we don't want you running out of yarn halfway through your pattern, basically. You can also, we also said about if you are a tight knitter, you can always go up a size as well.
Yeah.
So you don't have to alter the needle size if you like the stitch definition and how the stitch looks when you've knit it.
Because I like the stitch definition of my actual tension on this one, rather than this is much bigger on the bigger needles. So an option would be not for me to go up 2 sizes in needles, but actually just to knit the bigger size garment. That would be an option too. Yeah.